Hi, this is Zoisa and welcome to my latest Friday feature focus. So today I'm really delighted to introduce you to my friend and fellow colleague, Claire. I've known Claire for just over a year, or maybe coming up more than a year now. I first met her on a Touch for Health course, and it was really fantastic to learn more about the body and kinesiology. And I love her passion and enthusiasm for health and well-being, working with other people, and also just how the brain works. So Claire was my first person that I thought of when I was just like, I want to do something to do with the brain and how it functions. So welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much for having me. Oh my days, it seems like a lifetime ago that we first met doing Touch for Health. It's like, wow. Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, it's so nice to be here.
So before we get into kind of some of the first questions, the first thing really is just to tell people a little bit about yourself. So how is it that you became interested in the brain? Have you always been interested in the brain and health and well-being? And our particular kind of focus for the month on our topic is the brain, function, pain, and creativity, and how it interacts and has an impact on just a whole variety of our aspects of our lives. So for me, personally, I kind of knew bits about the brain, but not a lot. And it's not until I'd actually experienced having had a C-section, as you may well know by now, those of you that have seen some of the other videos, that not so bad. It was more actually having had the operation on my calf, weirdly, and like a little taking out another mole to check was that correct on the other foot, and I was just like, my walking is not right, and I'd done all the physical stuff and I'm like, no, my brain is still not knowing where everything is. And it's almost like because of the scar tissue and the other stuff, it's like led me down another road to kind of find out more. And I know you've done some scar tissue work, so that's kind of been my little journey into kind of rehabbing myself, and also with all the MELT method that I've learned and the MELT neuro strength, and kind of, as well as having done work with Parkinson's and things, I've kind of come at it. But actually, definitely, it was my own personal experience that's kind of like drilled me into, we need to know more about the brain. It's kind of there. We use it. We don't think about how we've learned or how you know how to speak, how to recognize things. And particularly being in my late 40s now and doing the studying for Touch for Health and kinesiology, I'm like, well, how do I learn? How do I need things to kind of come to me, and so that I put them together so that my brain can process them in a way that works for me? That's been another whole kind of learning and discovery. And particularly as an entrepreneur and somebody that's kind of like, I work for myself, it's like I realized that I'm not a linear A, B, C. My brain don't work like that. I'm kind of like, I can great at generating ideas, and I can see and connect loads of things, but it's kind of like you drop a whole load of ping pong balls and they go up and bouncing everywhere. It's like my brain seems to kind of function like that. So there's a little bit about me and kind of why I'm really interested in the brain. So why is it, and how did you become interested in the understanding more about the function of the brain?
So I guess I'll begin with, I was always really, really sporty. So I swam and I played rugby to a really, really high level. Very unusual sporting combination, to be fair. And then I went off to uni and I did a sports science degree, which was fascinating. And I very, very quickly discovered I'm a very, very linear thinker. I'm very A follows B follows C. And Zoisa knows this with me because we've studied together for years now. And I'm like Mrs. Flowchart. That is probably how you can describe me and my learning experience. And that was fascinating. And I was very much about the how and the why. So why does the body do that and how does it do it? And I was one of those like perennial nuisance kind of students, because I was like, okay, well, yeah, I hear you say that. I understand it, but why does it do that? And they're like, but because it does. And I'm like, but that's not a good enough answer, but why? I need the why to be able to understand the how. And so uni was really, really kind of interesting exploration of the why. I was very, very into like the psychology of movement. So why people chose to behave in the way they did, why they chose the sports they did. I spent time working with individual athletes, but also spent time working with teams and watching the changes that an individual has when they're doing their own personal training and doing their own health, they're doing their own rehab, own fitness, to then when they go and join the team and how those behaviours change. And then actually how does the team dynamic change when you switch in and out players? So completely fascinating around the hows and the whys and the different personalities that come to training, also turn up on match day. And then how that ebbs and flows and peaks and troughs throughout a game situation, and what it's like when you go through different stages of the game. So actually the first round of any season is kind of like, okay, you're just finding your feet. You come towards the end of the season, you get to semis and finals, and you see lots and lots of different behaviours from people where you know them, you know the person really well, and the behaviours that they show, you're like, whoa, where did that alpha personality come from? Because I've known you for years and you've not been that person. So that was kind of how it all started. And then I kind of fell into this rabbit hole of rehab. So understanding what drove people to want to do their rehab. So you have a big surgery and you go through your traditional NHS physio, and that takes you to a place of being a okay-ish functioning person. Is probably where I describe it. And depending on where you live in the country, depends on how good that physio service is. So it depends on how good that quality of life is that you're going to get back. You need to meet certain base parameters, but even then you might get to those and still feel that there's a disconnect from where you were pre-surgery. And they were the original people I worked with. So they've been signed off from NHS physio, but they weren't quite ready to go back to their normal life. So it's kind of like getting into the heads, understanding the motivations, and looking at actually, so this is where you were before, this is where you are now, how are we going to get you there? And we got into the relationship of pain. And for some people, it was like this all-consuming entity. And for other people, it's like, yeah, we know what, when I do this, it hurts, but I just carry on and do it anyway. And it was just understanding the two different drivers between the two, how they'd manifest in people, and actually how it changed that person's outlook on life. So for some people, pain literally became all-consuming. It was like a mask, it was like their clothing, it was their everyday personality. And they'd come and see me for their sessions, and I love the pool, I love water, so a lot of my sessions were water-based, and it was like, okay, let's take you in the pool, because actually you decrease people's pain levels when you get in the water. It's just magical. And taking them going, well, actually, we take away this whole mask of pain, what are you left with? What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? They're like, pain's my identity. Like, if you could pick a new identity, what would it look like? Like, mind blown. They're like, but it's my identity. Like, but it doesn't have to be your identity. You can be anybody you want to be. You can be anything you want to be. You don't have to be defined by your pain. And some people are like, oh, I'm not sure you're quite that person that I need to be working with. I'm like, okay. And other people are like, yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. I don't have to be defined by my pain. And actually, if I do this exercise in the pool, well, actually, you can't see, I'm just taking my arm in and out now for somebody who's got post-shoulder surgery. And actually, you can do that and it's comfortable. And actually, we can then start to do this exercise on land with a stretch band. Then we can increase some weight, and then we can do some other stuff. And actually, before you know it, you're back playing squash with a racket in your hand. And I was like, whoa, yeah, I can see the journey. Actually, it doesn't have to define me. And that was kind of really interesting. And pain science and the neuronerdery that I do wasn't really around back then, because we're talking about 20 plus years ago. And it was a really interesting journey. And the people or the organisation I used to work for were very much like, oh, you're getting a little bit outside the box now. You need to come back in. Here are your parameters. You need to be in the box. Zoisa knows me well enough. I'm not really a box person. I'm like, there's the box. Oh yeah, there's the box. It's over there. Okay, that's fine. And it was quite frustrating to be going, no, you need to come back here. And these are the parameters you need to work within. I was like, oh, okay. It's like, a little bit constraining. So kind of it just evolved, and then like kind of science caught up, training modalities then caught up, and it kind of evolved into this whole magical thing. And then people became much more aware about the role of the nervous system, which is, it's just magical. And the nervous system in itself is just magical, and it plays a really important part in somebody's rehab. And actually everything I do here in my clinic is based around how somebody's nervous system is. Because if the nervous system is really unhappy, it means actually what we're going to be able to do in clinic is going to be really limited. If you think of your nervous system as being like a glass of water, and within that glass, there's going to be a capacity. So it might be this big. And if your capacity is full of water, then you've got no wriggle room at the top to cope. Thank you. Yes, you've got no wriggle room at the top to cope with anything unexpected that comes along. And literally everything to your body is really stressful. And your whole body's just like, I just can't cope with this. And it's living its life literally as in your permanent state of fight and flight. So your body thinks it's being chased by tigers literally every single moment, every single day. And you're just sat down watching television. That's all you're doing. And your body's like, oh my God. And actually, it's not like that at all. So working with your nervous system, we can bring it down, we can start to adjust it so that there's more water in that glass, less water in that glass and more space. So actually, there's more space for your body to go, oh yeah, okay, I see that, recognise it, don't need to pay attention to that. Oh yeah, okay, well, it's like we're going to put some more weight on the bar today. Okay, yeah, that's cool, that's not stressful. That's actually quite good fun. Can we have a bit more weight? Okay, maybe. So that's literally where all my work has come from, is working with the nervous system, with the permission of the nervous system to be able to make changes and generate that space. And actually it's in that space of the nervous system is where that really magical changes happen. And it's just truly beautiful work, but it's really unusual work. And there aren't many people that work in that space because they literally go, oh yeah, we see that. What you need to do is just need to stretch this. And you're like, yeah, but it really hurts. Oh, you just need to stretch it, it'll be fine. Yeah, but it really hurts. You just need to stretch more. Yeah, but if it really hurts, the body is just going, yeah, that glass is really full. And actually now that water's starting to flow over the top, and actually I'm not going to do that now because it really hurts. Actually, just do that. Okay, that doesn't hurt. Okay, can you do it again? Oh yeah, that's okay. I know you're making space in the glass, so there's a little bit more room in there. So actually next time you do it, you go, oh yeah, look, what flexion going on there? That's not scary. Your body's going, actually, yeah, you know what? I see that path. That path is okay. It's not a scary path to go down. That's how I ended up doing what I do.
Oh, fascinating. There's so many different things as I was hearing you talking that I'm like, oh, I can so relate to that. And particularly about the nervous system, and the brain is connected into our nervous system. We have our conscious kind of element of our nervous system and unconscious element of the nervous system. And I was looking into different facts and things the other day, and I couldn't believe it, that it's like our brain processes 11 million bits of data per second. And I was like, that's phenomenal. I was like, right, how many does a computer process? And it's like, doesn't even touch kind of how much a computer can process. And it's not only are we processing, it's not just kind of binary, it's like your body is constantly processing. It's like visual information, sound, touch, feel, what's, how's that air, what is the temperature? I'm inside, but I'm looking outside and I'm seeing the trees, so that's kind of giving me information. And so those are all different stimulus, and particularly when it comes to pain and feeling sensitive, is that if your nervous system, and that if there's already like literally Heathrow Airport, loads of information, stimulus coming in to you, if it's really quiet, then that's like, oh, I can cope with that. But if you've got like, if it feels really big, and again, that I love that glass analogy, if the glass is full, then everything's like you've got a magnet, like a big kind of articulated lorry kind of literally of information coming in, and there's no processing, there's no kind of buffer zone to be able to cope with it. And that buffer zone is like that glass being empty. And so it's like calming that nervous system down so that actually you have the space, you have the capacity to process. It's like your computer. If you have all the windows open, everything runs the wheel. The wheel goes round and round and round, and it just takes longer to press, or things kind of freeze for a bit. And so, yeah, the nervous system is a really amazing thing. And pain as well, I think that definitely is fascinating. And we don't think, or people don't necessarily think about how the brain works, or how, how that pain in my tooth, or that pain of my body, and how much pressure, it's, what is it that's causing that in the brain? It's not something we necessarily think of. How does it function? How does it do that? How does it receive and translate that information to us, until either you're trying to learn something and it doesn't happen, or you're trying to achieve that movement and it's like, well, I even think I don't even have to move. I just go to think, oh, I'm going to do that exercise, and automatically, like you say, the whole nervous system's on high alert. It's like, if I do that movement, I'll be in pain. And it's like, well, we have to kind of backtrack and go, well, first of all, you need to undo any kind of excess pain or tension. That's where I've learned to come from. And then you just have to go, just start the movement. It doesn't even have to be a big movement. You can just start and going, well, get things in line and start the movement. If you take it slow and gentle and start the movement, then you'll feel the transition as the signaling comes to the body to then go, we're coming into the danger zone. This is and then everything kind of goes, danger, danger. And then when no danger comes, it's like, oh, there's no danger. Oh, we can chill out a little bit. But again, it's still finding the right practitioner person who understands that alternative way of viewing things, because definitely in the fitness and rehab world, it's like 100 repetitions, if there's no pain, there's no gain. That's kind of been a lot there. And then you've got the other end of the scale where you then get into kind of nociception. It's like the pains, it's just registering things off. So one of my questions for you is, in terms of that whole learning and processing information, and for those people who haven't necessarily had the experience that we've had, how would you describe, this brain, this 3 pound, 1.5 kilogram thing that's in your head, the function? How would you describe that to somebody?
So I would probably describe it as being the most magical thing ever. I'm really sorry about my cat. Yeah, absolutely the most magical thing ever. Learning is amazing. I love to learn. And when I think about my own learning style and how it's changed over the years, before I met Zoisa, I had a massive accident. And as a result of that, I had a horrible head injury. And one of the things that horrible head injury left me with was that I lost my photographic memory. So I've literally, here I was at 40 years of age going, oh my God, I've actually got to learn how to learn. How do I do that? Because I've never really had that issue before. I just looked at stuff and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And it was just all in there. And now I'm looking at stuff going, how do I join the dots together? And what's been really interesting with my own learning style is that I've gone from being very, very logical and very linear to being a lot more, actually, I know what I need to see it, I need to do it, I need to actually go through and actually have my body put in that position, see what it feels like, and then go through and then be the therapist that then puts somebody through these different things. So I experience it from both sides. And super, super fascinating, because here I am going, oh yeah, but my logical side says, well, actually, I need to see it, do it, and have various limbs put in strange places. So it's been a really fascinating journey. And when you think about how people learn, there's generally 4 different learning styles. So you're generally either a seer, a doer, a toucher, or a hearer. They've got proper posh names, but that tends to be the ones I work with. And I actually work with a really fascinating group of people who are about to embark on a basically life transformational training course to become an air traffic controller. And the very first day of their training, they actually come and spend it with me. where actually we teach them, and I teach them actually how to get their bodies ready to learn. What is their learning style, and what is it they need to do to be able to look after themselves. I can't say I can take the whole credit for this program. It's being solely developed by me. I stole the idea from McLaren Racing because it's what they do with their engineers. When they bring new engineers in, they go through this program, but actually how to show up for work and be effective. You know, what is it that you need to do to look after your body? Because you know what, on race day, every 10th of a second counts. And it's like, well, actually, you know what, same thing for an air traffic controller. Literally every second counts. So actually to come through, get through your training, you need to know how you learn. You need to know how to look after your body. You need to understand the importance of nutrition, sleep, and exercise. It's like, and these people are sort of going, oh, I thought I was coming to learn how to control planes. It's like, you are, but actually to do that, you need to be able to look after you and understand how you do your thing. I'm like, oh. And it's like, so I now do my thing through colour and association. So I have a lot of post-it notes in my life. I have a lot of different coloured pens, different coloured bits of paper, and I now learn through kind of going, oh right, so if I'm working with this muscle group here, in all of my notes that's all written in red, so that tells me it's this, and that associates with this emotion, that organ, and all these other things that I've got written in red. But actually over here it goes off to a green tangent, so that tells me this, and actually that's how I see the whole world. It's a really interesting place to be in, to be fair, in my head. But it does make for a real journey of self-discovery, so understanding what you need to do to be able to learn. And actually how you cope with that when it changes halfway through your life. Because you're like, well, actually, I've always been, actually, I just need to read it in a book and it's there. Or I just need to watch it. Or I just need to hear somebody talk about it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's all in there. Whereas now, that's not the case. Something I've discovered about my own journey is that I can be in a lecture and I can be watching somebody and listening to them, and I can be completely enthralled in everything they're saying. Does that mean I can take notes? No. It's like one thing too many. So I can either write or I can listen. I can't do both at the same time. So I'm absolutely shocking to sit with in a class environment, because I'm like, I can do one or the other. And that is probably the biggest learning challenge that I have, that I need to find a way around. Much of the work that I do here in clinic has been born out of my own frustrations and my own rehab journey. So a lot of my journey back to where I am now involves some really, really dubious advice. The thing what I'm about to say, please don't ever do this, because there's just no need to do it, because you have people like me and Zoisa in your life. I had some really horrible facial injuries. I had a lot of scar tissue on my face, and the visual impact of having scars and having your face really, really deformed it's massive, and it really, really dents your confidence. It affected my speech, and I know I used to stand up at conferences and talk to hundreds of people, and I could just about get a sentence out. So here I am, I've gone back to the doctor and this is really, really affecting me on so many different levels. So I just straight the cat. And he was like, oh, well, you know, you've got your scar tissue there. What you basically need to do is just get your lip and just pull it apart like that to break down your scar tissue. I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah, just get your lip and just pull it apart. And I'm like, that'll really hurt. You know, it's good pain. I'm like, no, the pain's there for a reason, it serves a purpose. And he was like, no, it's good pain. I'm like, nah, it's not good pain. And he's like, yeah, let's just go like this with your lip, like that, and you just start to break it down. I'm like, really? No, please don't ever do that, because there's just no need to do anything like that, because there are people like me and Zoisa. And that's probably the scariest bit of rehab advice I've ever been given. And then when I started to go back to work and try and deal with literally, you know, normal kind of like everyday life with people talking, background noise, lights, trying to stay focused in conversations with groups of people, I'm like, I have no idea what is going on. There is literally just too much. And it was just like the airport analogy that you used. I'm like, yeah, I can't be doing this. So again, back to the doctor. You know, I'm really struggling. These are the things where I'm really, really struggling. You just got to get on with it, love. I'm like, I was about to do a PhD. I had a photographic memory. Please don't, you know, belittle me with, you know, this is just now your life. I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that. And really, really despondent at this stage. Did some internet searching, found some amazing practitioners out there that actually showed me that life could be really, really different. And thank God I found them, because actually they've opened up a whole new world to me of different therapies and different ways to approach a complex rehab situation like my own. But it's also shown me about a whole different relationship that you have with pain. Pain is there to show you that something's not right. It doesn't define you. It doesn't have to define you. Where your pain shows up, so if it's in your knee, it's not your knee that's the issue. It's telling you, actually, you know what, I'm going to let you know it's here because you're going to take notice of it, because you like to run, you like to do something, you like to do all of these things. So actually, if I show up in your knee, you're going to listen to me. So it's going to stop you from doing something you really, really enjoy. Pain doesn't always equal damage. It's just letting you know that there's something going on somewhere that's a little bit hinky and just needs to be looked at. And that's where people like Zoisa and myself can come in and go, oh, here we are. And we can start to unravel the different layers. And working with pain is a bit like peeling back an onion. So there's lots and lots of different layers. And we may not get the root cause of your pain in the first session, because it can be really, really complex and there's lots of different things involved. And pain always has an emotional aspect to it, particularly if it's been there for a long time. So the longer you've had the pain before you come and find somebody like Zoisa or myself, the longer and the bigger the emotional attachment will be. And the emotional attachment to it is a fascinating area to explore. It's something I spend quite a lot of time with in my own clinic. And if you think that, you're running on a gravel track and you sprain your ankle, and you go through, you do your rehab, you don't run full time, but you're not allowed to, and then you start to run again and you come to a bit of gravel, and in your head's going, oh, but actually last time we were in this situation, this happened. So then you've got thoughts, feelings and experiences, and they're literally all coming together like a little Rolodex in your head. So you've got these 3 little files that just go, oh, hang on, gravel, oh, gravel, gravel, and they bring all 3 together, and you're like, oh, okay, oh, I best walk on this bit because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to fall, I'm going to hurt my ankle. And then the work that I do is actually literally stopping those Rolodexes and going, actually, so you know what, here's the gravel. It's a safe place to be. It's not scary, it's not going to hurt you, and actually start to make those new patterns to become available and go, actually, there is a different solution here. So yeah, it's amazing.
It is, definitely, and I can also relate to in terms of the pain, and just part of it is if you've been living or experiencing a lot of pain, then it knocks your confidence in terms of your ability to function and what you're able to do, and the tolerance. Even if you have, so often people can have like a high threshold of pain, and then it's like, because it's that information is always, so it's like that data is always, it's always in the system, and because it's always not necessarily the thought of it, but it's like it's loud in the system. Think of it as like big lumps of sugar cubes. As you can see, I like analogies. So it's kind of like big lumps of sugar cubes. It's like the information is big, it's tangible, it's there. And so it's like for each big lump, there's a little bit lump. So it's almost like when you allow the body to just calm, then it's able to realize that actually what it thought was a massive bit of sugar lump is actually only a little bit. Maybe like a few granules, but in order for it to see more of that reality, then it is a case of being gentle, taking it easy, again calming the nervous system, and finding out, in my experience of working with people in pain, and fibromyalgia is a massive one, not a massive one, but that's kind of one that I've kind of worked with, and I haven't kind of worked with it, I have worked with it. And in my experience, the first few sessions, literally an hour would be too much. It's like you spend a time when you work with Claire and I and go, okay, well, where do we want to get to? Where are we now? And then literally, because everybody is different when they come in, your pain experience and what you've been up to will vary. So it's always important to make sure that you take what is there in that given moment and then go, okay, how can we again, calm the nervous system? Do we need to work with, I've worked with tuning forks, or I've worked with Reiki, I work with melt. So what's fascinating about having a number of different modalities is there is no one thing that's right for one person. It's about getting the whole picture of everything that's going on, and almost like finding the connections. And there's always, and this is just my personal feeling, so people may have different experience of it, but if you get the whole picture, there's always a doorway in, always. Our bodies and brains are fascinating, and you've got one hemisphere that is the logical A, B, C, D, and then you've got your other hemisphere that is our creative. I can jump around from here to here to here and it'll still make sense. So there's always an avenue and a doorway in, but rather than coming at it with a sledgehammer, which I think sometimes the medical model, it's just like, well, we'll just hammer our way in, and if we've had an injury or operation, rather than taking the time and supporting the body through its healing process, or giving it the framework, just as your arm would need a sling and support, well, it's like your brain also needs the additional support and to feel safe, and to feel that there's no saber-toothed tiger that's going to kind of come and attack it. The symptoms and the alarm bells of pain are, like you said, they're just a messenger. They're just a messenger. Don't beat up the messenger. It's like, what is it that the body needs, so that you can actually work from a safe space to be able to then start a slow progress journey. Because that pain or that unclear thinking, the ability to not be able to articulate your words or get them from your brain to your mouth, which I've demonstrated so nicely in this interview process, those are signals. It's like your body is amazing. It is always trying to keep you alive, functioning, and in human homeostasis. And so if you need to drink some more water,
thank you. But despite
drink some more water. Take a breath in, and then use those basic things: food, eat, drink, sleep. Those are some basic things to kind of give your brain some space. That's the downtime. That's the less stimulus. Coolness on the eyes, and noticing, when you go to produce that movement or lift that thing or get in the car to take that journey, how can you make that feel safer or be kinder to your body, and understand more of for me, it's those subtleties. Because by the time you've got that pain in that knee and that ankle injury, it's like the information, it's like your brain is always processing the information. Your body is like a massive sensory, particularly the skin, largest organ of the body. To your brain, your gut, and your heart, it's like three brains constantly processing. Process the information, send that bit of information, send the red bit there, send the green bit there, send the blue bits of information there. Those green and blue will just make a purple out of that, and then that goes kind of like over to that bit. The body is all good at kind of chunking it into bigger things so that we can process, and anything that you can't process, it goes in the unconscious and it'll filter. But what we can do is to start to become more aware of the subtleties, and this is where, as I say, with Claire and myself, you can understand. Part of what we do is educate you to understand more about how and why, and there's always a why. It may look in different forms, but it's still a why. And I think that's where, in terms of, like you were saying, the medical model and fitting into that box, you need somebody that you can, it's like, I can recognize the box. If you need me to be in a box for a bit, I'll be in that box, but notice that I will jump out the box or pull something else into that box so it'll change shape as it needs to, because it is about a person, definitely a person-centered approach. And so, as well as pain, and also some of what I've just been talking to is about, and this is what Claire's had to learn in her journey, is how to be more creative in terms of ways to support and assist the brain, because we have got that creative element. And what I love, and I've done blogs before about learning and about neuroplasticity, and was fascinated when it's like, well, yes, you can learn, and yes, the synapses fire, and then where there's stimulus, then you have a reaction, and then if they fire together, they wire together, and that's where you create that neural pathway. So if you imagine a forest, haven't been there for ages, and then when you go in, you have to kind of carve your way through. It's like that's what happens if the pathway, even if it's overgrown or if it's never been there, it's like it is possible to get through, but you can't just blaze straight in there, otherwise you'll get all caught up in all the prickly bits in the forest. So you just have to tentatively, if you gradually, slowly, steady, gently make your way through, then the pathway, the more you do it, becomes more ingrained to the body. And what's your experience in terms of the brain and the body's ability to be creative and using creativity to actually strengthen and support the brain?
So the brain is amazing. So the body wants to be in balance, wants to be in homeostasis. And when it's going through life, it's got a set of predefined things going on up here that say, actually, so I'm going to go from here to here. And you don't really think about how you can do it, you're just going to get there. And that's because we've done it loads and loads of times. But actually, we can unlearn that pattern and start to put new bits of programming in that. So I think I'm a bit like a human computer programmer, because actually I'm going through, okay, so that little bit of that chunk of movement pattern there, we're just going to rewrite just that little tiny bit. So when I think about people with the ankle injuries to the runner, actually the work that we do is really, really simple. It's actually get you to put your foot on, let's go that way, a foot on a foam pad that's unbalanced, and just get you to put some load through it. It's a completely safe space here, and we do it with using your nervous system as being my doorway, my entry, making sure it's safe for us to do this work. Is your body happy to do this work? And then we'll get you all set up in the right position and just get you to just be there, no load going through your foot first, and then very, very gradual incremental load. Is your nervous system still happy? Yeah, it is. Okay. Or no, it's not. Okay, well, if it's not, let's go back and dial it back, and let's go back to the place where it was, and it was happy, so that you can go, actually, this is all right. On an unstable surface, I can safely put load through my foot, and just gradually start to increase it. So from just being that static action, it becomes actually, okay, I can do a heel strike. I can come down, I can come down, I can come down. Now I can toe off. And actually you can just start to build all of that action. And actually, I can stand there on my injured leg, or what was my injured leg, just one-legged on that unstable surface, and actually still have a conversation, and my nervous system's still happy. I'm like, yeah, do you know what? That's my job, they're done. Because I've got you to that place. Rewiring the brain and the messages is really, really beautiful. It's amazing, amazing work. And actually you can do it for scars, and particularly things like C-section scars. I'm going to go on a tangent now, Zoisa, I'm really sorry. So C-section.
I have C-section scars, so yes.
C-section scars, they are a triumph of something that you and your body have been through, but they're also can be incredibly disruptive to how the body normally works. So Zoisa very beautifully explained about how the path of the neurons work, and how when they come together and they start to join, oh, actually, we're making a new path. So you think where your C-section scar is, it's right near your pelvic floor, it's through your abdominal muscles. And those of you who've worked with Zoisa for long enough will know that the importance of the pelvic floor and your diaphragm and how they work together. And actually, when you have your C-section, it's going to really mess with your pelvic floor. So actually, through doing some really, really good scar work, you can start to bring your pelvic floor back online. So important. But actually, the importance of working with the scar, bringing those neural pathways back together. Just go, yeah, oh yeah, here we are. And you know what? It's okay. We're nearly joined up. And they're like, oh yeah, I can see you over there. Oh yeah, I recognise you. But we're not quite ready to touch yet. So, okay, well, we'll just hold you here for a little bit. A couple of sessions time, you're like, actually, do you know what? We're ready to get there. We're starting to ready to bring these ends together. And then it's going, oh, hello. I remember you. You're like a distant friend from ages ago. Oh, yeah, we used to live over the road from each other. Now we're neighbours. We're like, oh, yeah, actually, and it starts to build and starts to build. And you're like, oh. And doing that with a nervous system that feels safe is amazing, and it's powerful work. If you've had a particularly traumatic C-section, it's perfectly normal to find that there's a lot of emotion attached to that scar. The first time I had work done on my face scars here, I'm not going to lie, I was an emotional wreck. But I know these all came to me through an accident. I wasn't expecting to have an accident. I just went out on my bike for a bit of fun. And so for those of you who had your birth plan, you've got this expectation of how your birth is going to go. And for whatever reason, it's not happened that way. So there's going to be a whole lot of emotion held in this scar. And actually working with people like Zoisa and myself, we can help you release that in a really, really safe way. Actually, through that release of all of that emotion that's pent up in the scar, actually it can change the visual impact of that scar. It can also change your form and your function as well. So actually, through going through that process, it might feel horrible, it might feel a bit messy, it might feel like your whole world's just been thrown up in the air. But actually, when you come through the other side of it, you're probably going to have a pelvic floor that works really, really well. And let's face it, everybody wants one of those. But that is the absolute beauty of working with the nervous system and actually bringing the neural pathways back together to go, oh, here we are, actually, yeah, we're together, and actually we can be friends, we can work, and actually we can work well together rather than work in opposition, which, face it, that is amazing.
And then one of the things that I find really interesting is, and this is something that Claire and I have spoken about before, was in terms of the scar. So when you cut, so whether it's a finger or whether it's you've done an injury or you've bruised, so if there's any impact and an area has had to go through a healing process, particularly scarring, that's what I'm going to talk to, is because there's been damage, and when the body is repairing, it's like it has to create new cells. If there's damaged cells, they have to heal. If they're damaged beyond repair, then it's like the body will be like, okay, we just need you to die off now, and then I'll regenerate. If the body has that ability, apart from teeth, can't regenerate teeth, it'll regenerate and regrow a cell to be able to do that. And the cells then have to have a conversation and learn. It's like it has to learn everything. It's in a whole new environment. It knows nothing, just like a little baby. So the cell has to learn that information and gather from what's around it. But when it comes to scar tissue, that has a different impact on the communication process and what things are able to heal. Bear with me one moment. Sorry, somebody's at the door. Sorry about that. Right, where were we? New cells, information coming in.
New cells.
Oh my God, nervous system, brain. Oh, should I stop? Should I go? Leave it. Somebody at the. There's a prime example of the brain and everything going on. So we were talking about scar tissue and the impact that has on that whole cell-to-cell brain-body communication. What's your experience on how that has an impact on the body to be able to process and go, move this, move that there?
So if you imagine that the body is made up of lots of little tiny electrical wires. I'm going to have another IT related analogy now. I'm really sorry for this. Or kind of like an electrical, yeah, it's an electrical analogy. So the body itself is made up of lots of little electrical pathways. See, I'm like Zoisa, I love a good analogy. If you imagine that where you have a scar, so I've got one here, there, oh, another couple on the inside of my mouth. So actually, when all the electricity flows around the body, it comes around, it comes around, it comes around. So I know I want to basically do like a trout pout, basically. So the brain's sending messages, and it's going, right, make a trout pout, and I'm going, and you see my bottom lip duct can't do a trout pout. And the reason it can't do that is because actually all the nerves that run along here and up there have all been severed. So actually, if you imagine that all those little electrical wires, when I had my accident, they were all damaged. So they're all literally just cut in two. And nerves do regrow. They absolutely do regrow. But it just takes a little bit of time. And sometimes when they regrow, they don't quite go in the same pathway. And actually, they need a little bit of help just to line up again. So scar tissue is really, 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 really dense. So if you imagine that the rest of our skin is quite soft, quite elastic, and I'm trying to think of a really good analogy now. Imagine you've got a big mound of like dirt and earth, and you're trying to make a tunnel to go through, and you're trying to burrowing through, and you get halfway through it, and you hit something solid, and you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, and you're there, and you're trying to dig and and you can't get through, and you're like, oh, okay. And actually, that's what scar tissue is like for a nerve. So it's coming through, it's burrowing, it's burrowing. Oh yeah, and it hits something, and it's really, really solid, and it takes much longer, and it's much, much harder for the nerve to make its way through. And eventually, it will get there, but it will take a little bit of time, and it will need help from somebody like myself or Zoisa just to break it down and not be so tough. So you can start to bring the nerve through and just start to get there. And there's other things you can do with nerves where you can do some really, really gentle work with them, which changes how they respond. So sometimes nerves can be really, really kind of like almost like turned up and have lots and lots of excitement and almost be like overstimulated all the time. And there's things that you can do to really, really just gently, it's almost like just turning down the volume on them. Just go, do you know what, little nerve there? Just going to turn you down just a little bit, just so you're not as leery as you were. Doesn't mean we're going to turn you off, we're just going to turn you down a little bit, because actually we just need the other nerves to have a voice and be heard. But at the moment, you're that little leery kid at the front of the class going, me, 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 me. It's like, see you, recognise you, but not now. Let's listen to your voices. And that's the type of work that we can actually get into. We can actually get into like, actually, which nerve is it that's being the leery one? Oh, it's this one here. Okay, right, just going to, and actually we're going to give you a little bit of excitement over here and just start to liven you up. And that's literally what we can do with literally any scar in the body. It's literally, once you understand how stuff works, you're like, okay, you just get into it and you literally just start to map out. You can start to feel when you work on the scar, like, oh yeah, okay, so that one there, that's a little bit lively, but this one over here, that's not so lively. So actually we're going to turn this one down, we're going to turn this one up. And it's like, oh yeah, and actually it does feel transformational, because those of you who've got scars, you'll know that sometimes they're numb, sometimes they're zingy. So I've got one side of my face that constantly feels like it's all zingy, it's like this. And it's like walking around with a face that feels like you've just been to the dentist and the anaesthetic's wearing off. And then the other side is just like completely numb. And it's really, really strange. And if that's where your C-section scar is, you've got your knickers there all day, just rubbing over your scars, just causing lots and lots of stimulation, and it can become super, super sensitive. So actually we can turn that down. On the bits where it's numb, we can start to increase the volume to go, actually, I can start to feel things now. It doesn't happen in one session. It takes a lot of really, really gentle work, because it's quite big, powerful work for the body. Because it's actually going, do you know what? Yeah, I've got to let you turn down that volume. I've been used to it being that loud. And actually, you're gonna turn that volume up. Oh, okay. So it's fascinating and magical. Could talk about it all day long.
I think, and one of the things that I find really interesting, having had, so for me, I had a C-section. When I had my operation on my calf, they did a lymph node biopsy. So they went into the femoral triangle, and I had a whole kind of hematoma, swelling, massive bruise bit. And so on that part of my inner thigh, it is that dull, numb, everything's just quiet, can't quite hear it going on. And other parts are like you say, so definitely I can relate to that. And the other thing as well is about scar tissue, for those people that don't know, if you've kind of cut yourself, then just general normal, if it's a little cut, then the body, when it heals, the healing tissues, they don't necessarily lay down kind of nicely. The layers, if you rip it or if something tears, then actually if it's a funky tear, then the body kind of finds that sometimes a little easier to knit together, rather than if it's kind of clean, then it's like, well, we don't quite know where those edges are. So that's where, again, little scar work can help. But in terms of the, if you have like a bigger or the deeper scars, then when the body goes, heal, troops, scar tissue troops, we need to call on you, come, we need security for this area. It's almost like you've got like little Spider-Man cells, and they're like, ping, 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 shoot that scar tissue. And it's like, it doesn't go, we'll just work on this area here and this area here. It's literally, it will go, put as many threads out in any direction. And it's like, we need some down in the feet, send it down there. So, and they are extra thick and have a lot more, they don't have as much stretchiness to them, because they're like, we're protecting, we need to be tough here, we need to have some stability. So I think the thing that I found fascinating was that it does that. So with some of the people that I've trained with Melt, that have had the fortune of seeing cadavers or dissection through dead bodies, you can have somebody that's had like a little operation here to have like a port in for an operation, and actually the scar tissue will literally go down around, and it's spread, kind of like if you imagine you had a bit of tissue paper and you dropped like a bit of paint or ink, and then it just disperses. So the scar tissue does that, and then like Claire said, with the nerve ending, and it kind of bumps up against the, something that it has more solidity to it. It's not as malleable, it's harder to get through it. There's less liquid fluid flow in that connective tissue. There's some in there, but it's less, it's a little bit more denser. And so it's almost like you have to imagine that whole communication process with the brain it's like it can't quite hear you, so trying to speak through a brick wall. And it also, the thing that I found interesting is that it creates like a white noise and a dissonance. It's almost like the information flows, it comes down, it's like, we're going, and then there's like, I have to get my message to over there, but I can't go through, and there's like a massive gap, and then there's something in the way. So sometimes the signal it's like, do I jump over, do I go round, who are my neighbors can I call on to kind of get that signal, or the signal just doesn't go there. So that's where actually being more tactile when you're working. So I know when I have to, it's like, find the abdominals, do those abdominals, move your leg. I have to physically putting your hands on your scars on the body. It's like that extra pressure and feedback, because that's what the body wants. It's like, that's your information connection, and the body's like, oh, you mean that bit. Until you can help encourage those tissues to recognize or talk to one another, it's like the process of the brain processing that information, and even the connective tissue system, which works even faster than the brain, is like, it needs to have that helping hand to be able to do that. Fascinating, but that's not something that people will necessarily think about, is well, I've had that operation, well, I've done my ankle in, I've twisted it, I was running, well, actually I was just putting my shoe on, or I was having a jolly night with the lads or with the girls, and then I twisted and went over my ankle. So it's like, next time you put those shoes on, or next time you go to do that movement, the body will protect. It'll be like, I need to protect that area, so we won't walk, we won't put pressure on that, or I'll just keep telling you that there's pain, so you let me heal, give me the space. But then once it's healed, you need to rewire those pathways and check it out. So fascinating. And in terms of one of the things that we originally spoke about when Claire and I started this conversation about brain and function and pain and creativity, was that different. You either could be somebody who likes to process. I love Claire's flow charts. I'm there in lessons going, oh, could you just show me? Because they make sense to me, but I couldn't actually, my challenge is my brain doesn't work to create the flow chart. Or it probably does, but my flow chart kind of zigzags and jumps around, and then I get to the same result.
You have a mind map, Matt. I love your mind map. Oh, I'd love it to look like that.
Definitely. And so I think the takeaway really is that doesn't matter whether you're A, B, C, or whether you're kind of jump around like me, or a combination of both. Everybody learns in different ways and at different times. And one of the key things in terms of creativity is the fun. When you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself, if you watch kids, if they're going to retain anything, if it's fun and it's enjoyable, it's just like, I'll absorb that and retain it much more easily. If I don't like my green vegetables or whatever it is, it's just like, then you won't want to retain that. Don't want to eat that, thank you very much, no. And so I think that's a good analogy in terms of helping people to understand more about the brain, and it's just really another way of understanding more about yourself. So that would be my creativity and takeaways are that learning and just knowing more about the bigger picture and fun and creativity and play are good ways to help calm the nervous system, but also to increase and improve your learning. And it's almost like the brain can learn more effortlessly. For me, that's kind of what I think in terms of the brain. I know my mum is an occupational therapist, so they're trained to get you back into being able to function in your everyday lives. Is if you can't go through the door, come around it from a different way. Go make that thing, or sing that song, or play that instrument, because it's fun and you're still using the manual fine-tuning dexterity skills, or those bigger lever movements. What would be your takeaways in terms of things that people will help them if they're in pain? This is a good go-to, and also creativity.
So
how they can get in contact with you.
So, oh my God, so many questions there, Zoisa. My poor brain.
Sorry.
Let's start with ways to be creative. So many of us have a relatively sedentary role where we're doing very, very processed, very linear things. So we're doing very A follows B follows C type stuff during the course of the day, probably when we go to work. Probably Zoisa and I are probably the exception to this, because we get to be a little bit more, oh, there's a box, yeah, we're not in it, because we're over here doing this. But a lot of people, when you go to work, you have to be very conformist. But my challenge to you is to do something that isn't conformist. So I'm quite a linear person, to be fair. And for me, I struggle with creativity. I really find it really, really hard. So my challenge to myself is actually, I have to go and do something that's not structured. So dance is something where I need to go, I need to explore, and I need to play. Because that's not my natural thing. I've never ever done that. When you think about my sports that I've always done, so swimming, and then rugby, very, very structured, very, very disciplined. Dance, especially kind of that whole just pop the iPhone on in the kitchen, have a little boogie, completely not structured at all, completely free flowing. It's, you know, happens on the spur of the moment, and I'm not that person at all. Zoisa knows this, but actually it's something I challenge myself to do every single day, because I'm not that person, but I need to engage that side of my brain more. Other ways that you can engage that side of your brain is, you know, do something artsy, so, you know, draw, colour. Again, both of those I'm not very good at, and, you know, I tend to find that when I draw, when I try to colour things in, they tend to end up in very logical, kind of like structured patterns, and it's like, come on, left brain, go away. It's all about this side of the brain. But also play a musical instrument, learn to play something, because actually that is really, really going to challenge you. If you're right-handed, go and clean your teeth with your left hand. Oh my God, it's the worst thing in the world. Having said that, somebody who broke her right wrist, and I was like, I've got to clean my teeth with my left hand for the next 4 weeks. I'm like, what? How on earth is this going to happen? And it's, yeah, challenge yourself. Just try and just let me know how you get on. The other question was, what are my top tips for looking after your brain? So stay hydrated, lots and lots of water. Get some really good sleep. So sleep is so important, because it's not only when we make generate memories, it's when at the end of the day our brain goes through and just files all the stuff we've been working with all day long. But it's also the time when the street sweepers come out in your brain, and they come out every night and just go through and just clear up all the little channels and get rid of all the detritus that's in there and all the toxic stuff that's, you know, basically come out from everyday life. So if we don't sleep, they don't get the chance to come out and work, which means that actually what happens up here just gets a bit skanky and a bit nasty. So actually getting some good quality sleep. And if you've got insomnia, you struggle with sleep, you've got a head injury or anything like that, you all know exactly how traumatic it is and how awful it is, because actually these guys don't get to come out and clean. You can't generate memories because you're not getting that opportunity to get to REM sleep. Eat a good diet. Food is so important. So important. I would always advocate PFC, so I'm sure Zoisa's probably spoken to you guys about that. I'm looking at Zoisa now. Have you? No? Oh, so there'll be a whole nother video right there. But it's about a really, really sensible way of approaching food that involves proteins, good proper fats, so none of this low fat nonsense, and then limited carbohydrates. And proper fats are important because actually our brain is made of mostly fat. So actually it's really, really important to have proper fats. And the other really important thing is you need to move regularly. You need to do something that actually involves your body being active. But my other one is spend some time just being with your feelings. So whether that's, you know, breath work, whether it's journaling, just be with your feelings, at least a couple of minutes every day, maybe even more if you've got a lot of stuff going on. Because actually when you're with them, that's when actually really magical transformational stuff happens. And the other really important thing is to learn when your body is getting a little bit out of sync, when things aren't quite happening as they should do and you're not firing on all cylinders. And having had a head injury, I've spent a large portion of my life coming to terms with actually what it's like not to fire on all cylinders. And it can be the most strange feeling in the world. Probably the only way I can describe it, having come back from having concussion, is like you're sat in a coffee shop and you're just watching the world go by, and this is your everyday life. You know, well, so when you notice you're actually starting to fall into that pattern and that pathway, you're starting to get the brain fog, you're finding it routine tasks are becoming more difficult, you're making more mistakes, you're getting more errors, you're struggling to concentrate. Put all of that stuff down, walk away, have a glass of water, do some brain buttons, but also have some fresh air as well, and come back and just, oh, yes. And then having that break, having that time away is that opportunity to give your body the reset. It's the opportunity for your nervous system to go, do you know what? Oh, I just needed that moment away, because we've got that glass and we're just creating some more room in it. And it's just like the analogy Zoisa used earlier, that you've got your internet browser open and you've got 25 different tabs, and you're thinking, where's my computer going slow? Well, it's got no space. It's run out of room, and your brain is just the same. Zoisa and I have it in class on a regular basis, like, you know what? My brain is literally just full. I just need to just do something else. I need to move, I need to go outside, I need to do all of those things, because it just needs to make some space in my head. Yeah. Was there another question?
So it wasn't a question, it was more, how do people, so in terms of if people want to either know more, they have some scar tissues, or they want to know more, the injury rehab, so what can you help with and where are you based? I will also be putting Claire's details up at the end of the video when I edit it. But
so I am based on Hayling Island in Hampshire, but it doesn't mean you have to come to clinic, because I do amazing work here in clinic, but I also do some brilliant work online as well. My little therapy business is called Restore and Balance, and you'll find me on Facebook and Insta and all the normal hangout places where you find therapists. I predominantly work with people with trauma injuries. Much like Zoisa, I am a kinesiologist. I'm also a cranial sacral therapist and a scar worker. But actually it's the things about the brain that really get me excited. So it's brains, scars, trauma injuries. Oh, that's like my perfect client right there. And yes, that's what I get super excited by.
Lovely. So, well, thank you very much. And I would also add, really, in terms of particularly with the craniosacral work, having had craniosacral work done, or just cranial work done myself in person, and then just probably about 6 months or so ago, I had the pleasure of falling over. It wasn't a pleasure when I fell over with a bag full of I don't know what, but I definitely knew things weren't right, and I was able to reach out, and I thought we need to have a word with Claire. And what was really amazing is she was able to do some craniosacral work with me via Zoom. So she has a skeleton and equipment similar to me. It does make a huge difference. So if you know that you're feeling or seeing some of those symptoms, don't have to have been through like massive trauma or fall over like I did, but definitely if you want to know more or want to know if she can help you with whatever your challenges are, your pain, then please do feel free to reach out. And also, do you have any other blogs related to the brain or any ebooks or anything?
I do. On my website, I have a whole page full of blogs. I've got some stuff on there actually about my own journey with my own scars and actually what that was like and how scar work helped me. I've got something else on there about inner child and how our own inner narrative stops us from being the best person we can be. And there'll be some other things appearing shortly as well, but I'm not going to say what they are yet.
Well, thank you very much. So again, I will put any social media as well as Claire's website up so that you'll have that at the end of this. It's been fascinating just finding out more about the brain and function and pain and creativity. I hope it's given you some food for thought, and thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you for having me, Zoisa. It's been lovely.